Welcome to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production. Hi, I'm Carol Bissett, a crime writer, and I invite you with my co-presenters, Liz Hedgecock and Mike Jackson, each week to our conversations on all things murderous. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Only Murders in My Mind. I'm here today with my co-presenters, Liz and Mike. Hi, both.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Hello, Liz.
And we know, because we do know each other very well, that we all write in completely different ways, and that's something we're going to discuss in this episode. How we write, where we write, when we write. It's something, again, people will go, do you have a time? Do you get up in the morning and start writing at 9 o'clock and write through till 5 and just have half an hour for your lunch? No. Do you write so many thousand words a day? No. But we've all got different ways that we approach our writing. So again, I'll come to Liz first because
It's always me.
It is you, yes, it is you. It is you. But Liz has a very extraordinary way of writing, which is, I've never heard of it before. Well, I think it's amazing. So, how do you write most of your books?
Okay, well, since I think it will be 2019, I'm now an open air writer. So
is this to do with the COVID, or is it nothing to do with that?
It was pre-COVID actually, which was a terrible move on my part, because then obviously when it was locked down, you could only go out for like a certain amount of time a day. I was a bit stuck really. So what I do is I go on walks and I take my phone and I dictate a chapter into my phone. I have a post-it note with my chapter notes on it, and I do the same loop of where I live every single time. I probably shouldn't tell that to people because people may jump out of the bushes at me, and if they really don't like my books, they may try and prevent any future books being written. But yes, that's what I do. I go for a walk around where I live, same loop every time, and I dictate the chapter, and when I have finished everything that is on my post-it note, I go home and I send the result to myself in an email, and then I start editing it. So that's how I do it.
And that works really well for you, doesn't it?
Works well for me, unless it's windy. That's a bit difficult.
You get the
so it just doesn't pick it up, so you end up going, and Jade said she did say, she really did. So yeah, she can get that can be a bit frustrating.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it works for me. I find it helps me get into the flow. So because the thing is, I can't, sit there and decide to surf the internet or look at, cat cartoons or all the other things you can do when you're sat at your computer, or, tidy my desk.
Make another cup of tea.
There is that.
Yeah. I remember seeing a writer's desk and it was just littered with cups. And she said she just keeps making more tea instead of writing. She thinks about
tea
yes
at the time,
yes,
mind you. So
yeah, we've got through a few cups today, haven't we?
We might have done.
Oh.
But yeah, it works for me, and I don't think the result's any different because I changed. I'd co-written a series with my friend Paula, and then we kind of got back together to do another book, and she kind of went, "Will it be different?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't think so." And we proceeded in our normal way. She said, "Actually, no, it doesn't feel any different at all. I don't know how that actually works."
No,
but it does.
Yeah. Because when you're out there, as you say, apart from background noise, you're fully
saying hello to cats. That's the thing that does interrupt my flow.
It's when the cats say hello back.
Yeah, well, some of their cats,
Yes.
I know from experience, some cats do actually speak. But again, it's in her book. So, Mike, you're a coffee writer, coffee house writer,
coffee shop
writer.
Yeah, I do enjoy sitting in coffee shops and writing, and I find that the busier the coffee shop is, the better. It doesn't seem to affect my writing at all. I think partly because I love listening into conversations, and it's surprising how sometimes that can be inspirational. When I'm in a coffee shop, I don't always write as in terms of writing a short story, but I will always take my notebook, and I have a lovely fountain pen. I love to write with a fountain pen, but I do a lot of
really nice.
It is.
Yeah, I like to do a lot of free writing. If you've not heard about free writing, it might be something we could talk about in a future episode.
Well, give us an idea.
It's basically that to get the brain going, you just write, and you literally write anything that comes into your head. So if you say to yourself, right, I'm going to write for the next 15 minutes non-stop, and if you ever get to a point where you think, I don't know what to write, then you write down, I don't know what to write. I'm not sure what to write next. And you will find the brain will take over. And it's a way of delving into the subconscious, because I often look at my free writing afterwards and think, wow, where did that idea come from? Now, some of these ideas may have nothing to do with writing at all, but it is a way of getting ideas that are buried deep inside your subconscious out onto paper. And I find going back over the weeks and looking at that free writing, it's surprising how I often think, oh, right, yes, that's an idea. Maybe I could use that for a story, or maybe that might be the basis of this novella that allegedly I'm going to write at some stage in the future.
Do you have a particular time of day when you like to visit a coffee shop?
No, because I tend to do it if my dear wife is doing something else. So there are certain days when she's a great one for helping out at charity shops and what have you. So I have certain days when I go and sit myself in a coffee shop. But I've also got my studio where I like to go and write. My wife calls it the shed. It's not a shed, it's a studio. But that's very nice. I've got loads of books down there. I've got a nice comfy chair. I've got Wi-Fi. So I can sit in there and write.
Some of us just have a corner of the dining room.
They do, yes. I have a studio. I keep emphasising the word studio. At the bottom of the garden.
It is very nice. I've seen it, and it's got everything a writer would want. Yeah. I'm just wondering where's the whiskey?
It doesn't have a cat, fortunately. And it doesn't have any whiskey either, unfortunately. But that's where I tend to do my writing, and it tends to be longhand. I'm quite happy with computers. I'm quite happy to put something straight onto a computer, but I do like the flow of the pen on ink sort of thing.
Yeah, and I know some writers do all the first draft in longhand. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah. It's much easier for me because I tend to write short stuff.
Yes.
So that does make it easier.
Yeah.
No, I do. If I'm writing out notes, drafts, or notes for a draft, or kind of plot notes and stuff like that, I would always do that with pen and paper. But yeah, otherwise, I'm very much it goes onto the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did try dictating straight into the computer.
Oh yeah.
That just didn't work for me. I've tried different things. I've tried doing what you did, Liz, just sort of doing it and going for a walk. And yeah, I do get distracted too easily. I can't even listen to. I could listen to music that didn't have words with it, but I end up typing the words I'm listening to. Lazy Sunday afternoon, and then I'm typing Lazy Sunday afternoon in the middle of somebody being stabbed in the throat. So as one does. Yeah. So I literally sit down and at my desk. I have got a desk. It's under a lot of rubbish at the moment.
It's under a lot of creativity, Carol.
It is creativity, yes. And
creativity.
I just sit down and I try, when things are going well, to do 1,000 words a day. And it is going well at the moment, so I do. The problem is that I like to listen, because what I do is I listen to the speaking part of the computer, and it reads back what I've just read. Right. And to me, that's very useful, because that's when I pick up obvious mistakes and can correct them as I'm going along.
Yeah,
so
that's a tip I've seen various places for kind of catching errors.
Yes, yeah. I pick up quite a lot of mistakes, because when I'm typing, I do lots of typos, and as Liz knows, I have got dyslexia, so some words are completely the wrong word. And I suspect they're inappropriate as well sometimes.
Those are my favourite.
Yeah. So that's my process. And I do try and write in the morning, because I find in the afternoon I start getting tired. It's because I'm old. And I can't concentrate as well in the afternoon. So that's what I do. We've talked about where we write. Mike sometimes goes to his... studio, and we've got an office in our house which I share with my son, and very often I will be writing and he'll be playing computer games, and he puts his headphones on. I can just hear the odd Die, you swine, that sort of thing. And then he looks at me and he goes, sorry.
Fair enough.
But apart from that, it works really well. I have done something. Enid Blyton used to take her little typewriter and put it on a tray on her knee and sit and I sometimes, if I can't get comfortable in one of these seats, I will do that. But
Because Roald Dahl had his own writing shed,
he did.
Yes.
and I think he had a plank of wood with
Yeah.
either. I don't know whether he wrote longhand.
I
think
he wrote on yellow legal
Yes.
pads.
Yeah.
It was across a chair, wasn't
Across
it?
a
The
chair.
plank.
Yes.
Yeah.
I may be partly remembering the Wes Anderson adaptation of Henry Sugar that I've just seen, but yeah, I seem to recall that from reading some of his autobiographical stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
I once tried. Well, I have tried before this idea of writing so many thousand words a day, and I did it through NaNoWriMo,
Oh yeah.
Yes.
which happens in November.
Yeah.
I've not done that
Which
for a year.
stands for?
Stands for National Novel Writing Month.
That's
And,
the one.
and what is it exactly for people that don't know? Because I'd
Yeah.
never heard of this till I met you two.
Yeah, it's basically you. It's across the whole world. People just sign up for it. Doesn't cost anything, and you commit to writing. Is it 50,000?
It is 50,000 words.
50,000
in
words
November.
in November.
Yeah, so you all suffer together.
Yeah, and you can keep a record of you have a target for how many words to write, and you put in how many words you've written each day, and it gives you graphs saying
You
whether
watch
you're
it all
ahead of
building
target.
up, and you get little motivational emails
Yeah.
from people.
The trouble last time I've done it a couple of times, not done it for a number of years, and it does motivate you to write 50,000 words. It also motivates you to write rather than write and edit. You know, you
Yes,
don't have
you've just
time
got
to
to
edit. You
plough
just
on.
write the 50,000 words, and the idea is that when November's over, you then go back to it and do the editing. But the last time I did it, which was about 3 or 4 years ago, they have lots of writing forums in there. You can sign in for any of these forums, and they can be addictive. You can spend more time in your forums
Talking about
writing
your
rather than
writing. your
writing.
novel.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen, the exactly what you just said, the little graphs coming up and all that sort of thing.
I think it's really, really good to help you get started.
It
And
is.
My first full-length novel, House of Mirrors, was a NaNoWriMo production. I didn't get it all done in the month, but I think I got about 60,000 words, maybe 60 to 65,000 words. So yes, it did push me to do it, and the little badges actually are very comforting when you're doing something new and strange and big.
And it doesn't have to be a novel either, even though it's called National Novel Writing. I mean,
Yeah,
the
you
last
can be
time
a
I
rebel.
did it, I just did short stories, and there were lots of
Yeah.
people on there who are writing short stories. You end up writing
Lots of short stories. Yes, yeah. So if you are you've got these methods of writing, do you feel if you don't achieve what you should in a day, do you get slightly uncomfortable? Because I do. If something stops me doing 1,000 words, because at the moment, as I say, I'm trying to get this fourth book of The Warrington Detective finished, I do feel a bit twitchy. Like I've not done it today. I should have done. And then I'm looking at sort of at the end when I've got to hand it over to Liz to do an edit on the first draft. And sometimes life just gets in the way, doesn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Do you feel, are you organised enough to make sure you get your writing done when you want to?
No. No for Liz.
Sure.
No for you.
No for me.
I think there are sometimes days when you just can't get to it. So, I work in a school on Tuesdays, and generally I don't have the energy to come home and dictate a whole chapter. So, it doesn't happen, and I accept that. But, I'll try and do other stuff to free up time so that when there is an opportunity to get out there and do a chapter, I will do. I don't think that you have to write every day. So there's that as well. How about you, Mike? What do you think?
I think it depends on what you're writing. And again, I go back to something I said, I think, in the first episode of this podcast, that being somebody who flies by the seat of the pants, compared to you two, I see myself as a lazy writer. Lazy in as much as I'm writing short stories. So I don't have any deadlines as such. I don't have another chapter to do because I want to get this book finished.
Yeah.
Now that you two have made me write this novella, It's going to put me under tremendous pressure, and I'm not sure how I'm going to cope.
We actually do have a gun to his head.
Yes.
But when you're writing short stories, you can literally sit down, and if I'm writing, say, a 100-word story, I can finish off a 100-word story in half an hour.
That was the thing I liked about it when I
Yes.
started writing, because at that point I was working full time. So the ability to actually get something finished in a day
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
wonderful.
It's good, isn't
It
it?
is satisfying.
It
I mean,
is.
I also have a writing blog, so I put my stories on my blog.
What's your blog called?
Don't know. I keep changing the name.
You do, yeah. You've changed it.
I
Up.
think-
That's not
actually-
fair, is
Actually,
it?
it's just I think the present name is Mike Jackson, storyteller.
Yeah.
And I find I don't put something up every day, but it's having an out. I've always been a great believer. I used to believe this in school, that we used to get children to write stories, and they never said, why are we doing this? Because most teachers wouldn't know why they were doing them. But I'm a great believer that if you're going to write something, you need to have an audience. Now, the three of us belong to a writers group, and I know there's certain people in the writers group who would say, well, no, there's something cathartic about just writing. I'm not disagreeing with that. But the three of us, if we write something, we're looking to write it for somebody to read. We're looking for an audience. So that's one of the reasons why I put some of my short stories up on the blog, in the vain hope that somebody might read them. And I do get some, not a lot, but I do get some response sometimes from those.
And you've got a website, haven't you, for your books?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Which is very well followed. I follow it,
Oh,
and
right.
you put quite a lot of nice information on there about what you're doing and the cat.
Indeed, we'll have a newsletter as well. So yeah, I'm not as good at updating my website as I should be, so I have to say that now. But I do generally remember if I've got a new book out to put something about it on there. So
Yes.
Maybe this podcast should have a blog. That's something to think about.
Well, there you go, Mike. You offering?
No, I'm just really,
Amusing.
I'm too busy writing this novella. I haven't got time to do blogs.
This is true. Let's take the gun away.
Oh yeah, yeah. I really need a cat that likes me, because I think every writer should have a cat sitting on their desk, looking at them. You see so many pictures on Instagram. Only my cat hates me, so that's not going to happen. Going on to word count, my novels tend to be quite short. Most of my books are around 50,000 words, and when people go, "Oh, I've only done 75,000 words yet," and I'm going, "Oh, okay." Yeah, mine are very short and to the point. And I have to. That's why I solve the crime by Friday, because it's not a long book. Liz, yours are all. You've got different books of different lengths, haven't you?
I have. Probably most of my books are around 40 to 50, so short novel length. I mean, the thing with your books is, I mean, you say they're short, but you do pack a lot of plot into them. It's not like, you're being shortchanged at all. You will get a lot of murder and incident in one of Carol's novels. But yeah, I have some books that are novella length. So my Ghost Suspense series is novella length, and some of my Sherlock books are. Then I have quite a few at the 40 to 50,000, so short novel length. And then I have one series, which is the Mrs. Hudson series, and those books are around 80,000. And I have to say, writing the last book in that series nearly killed me. So
Just for our audience, Liz, because I get confused. A novella, right about what, 20,000, 30,000?
yeah, I think the cutoff for a novel is about 40,000.
Right.
So
anything less than that?
I think it's somewhere between 17 and 40, or 39999 to be exact, will be a novella, and then underneath that it's a novelette.
Yeah, short stories, they reckon anything up to about 6,000 words can be a short story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can have long stories as well, can't you? There's all different categories, isn't there?
So my novella, when I write it, is going to be about 30,000 words.
You all heard that, folks.
Heard it here first.
We're going to do a page count.
But my thinking with that, and I've never written a novella before, so it'll be brand new to me, is I almost want to treat each chapter a bit like a short story. So I'm aiming for 12 to 1,500 words
Yeah.
for each chapter.
Yeah.
So that's doable.
It's
Yeah.
doable. To me, that becomes something that's doable.
How long are your chapters, Carol?
Mine are very short, really. Mine are usually 4 or 5. To be honest with you, my chapters come to an end usually because it's a natural break in that book sort of thing in that story. But yes, I might have 23 chapters, but they're very short. I think Dan Brown does really well in some of his books. He does very short chapters, and I know that's controversial. Dan Brown isn't everybody's cup of tea.
There's something that I've seen, and again I want to play around with sometime, which is novella in flash, I think it's called.
Yes.
Which is basically a novella that's made up of lots of flash fiction style stories. So they can be very short.
Yeah. Although I have a feeling that might be a lot more work than just writing novellas.
And they have they're almost standalone stories, but there is a sort of a theme or a connection running through them. I've read a couple of these, and they're very good. They're very intriguing. So that's something else that to me might be something I might look into, because it's that link between a novella and the flash fiction writing, which I enjoy.
Which you could link up, because the people could all be staying in the same
home
or whatever. Yes, it could be something like that.
So would you have lots of different viewpoints? Would you have lots of different?
I think so. I think one of the ideas running through my mind was
murders only in your mind.
It's a bit like Game of Thrones. I remember when I read first.
But you will finish it, won't you?
I will.
Unlike Game of Thrones.
Unlike Game of Thrones, but with them, each chapter, from what I remember, that each chapter heading was somebody's name.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
And that is what things going through my mind. If each chapter heading is somebody's name, it gives you something quite specific to a point of view.
Yes.
A specific point of view to write from.
I did do a solo book with dual points of view, and I have to say it was a right faff.
Yeah.
I think the important thing here is this whole business about when you are writing, whether you're going for 1,000 words a day, 2,000 words a day, 500. It goes back to what I was saying about free writing. I think it's imperative that you just write and don't do any editing at all. I remember many years ago, I was going to write a collaboration. I was going to write with another chap, and we had a great idea. He wrote the first chapter, great. I was going to write the second chapter, he'd write the third, and so on. A bit like Liz and Paula do. So he wrote the first chapter, emailed it across to me. It prompted me to write the next chapter. I get it back to him within 24 hours, 36 hours, hoping for it to come back again. And what happened, I got an email saying, "Oh, Mike, I'm still not happy with chapter 1 that I wrote." And he was so fixated with not moving on until chapter 1
was perfect.
That we never got further than 2 chapters.
No.
And we're never going to, because it would have never been perfect for this particular chap. And I think that's the problem with some writers, is they want to get it right first time. It doesn't work.
So I'm talking to people out there now who would like to write, and everybody says they've got a book in them.
Yeah.
I think that's true. Writing isn't as easy as we think when we start doing it. We all belong to a writers group, and again, we'll talk about that in another episode, which I found really helpful. Others maybe not as helpful. It depends what you want out of it, really, doesn't it, Mike? But yes, I mean, a book of 100,000 words begins with the first thing
sentence
that you write, that's chapter 1 or whatever you want to put. And I think a lot of people are scared of starting the book, and not a lot of people are scared of finishing the book, because then what do you do with it? And again, this is something we will be talking about.
I will say on the subject of that, when I did my NaNoWriMo book, I finished it and I put it away, and I didn't dare to look for 8 months because I was so scared that I'd spent all that time writing something that was terrible.
That's a piece of advice I've read from other writers about leaving whatever you've written when you've completed it, putting it in a drawer for a little bit, and going back and reading it again with fresh eyes. I think that's really a really good idea.
Distance from
yes, you do.
Unless, of course, you're on a deadline.
Yeah.
Which sometimes happens when you've, been a bit optimistic about your pre-order.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I get a little bit fed up when people tell me I'm not a real writer, because I've not got an agent and I've not got a publisher.
That sounds like a whole new podcast.
It is a whole new podcast.
Or
Yes, it
episode,
is.
should I say,
It is. It's a whole new episode, because we could go on and on and on about that.
And we probably will.
I mean, going back to word count for a minute and crime writing.
Yeah.
I think there's something about when you're writing a book with crime in and there's going to be an investigation and a denouement and all those things, it has to be a reasonable length because you have so much to fit in.
Yes.
And I mean, you're going to have more than one suspect, presumably, and there's going to be an investigation. Of course, there are going to be wrong turns and red herrings and all those things.
Yeah, it does. It has to be. It has to be a certain length. And one of the things I enjoy about crime writing is looking at, as I say, forensics. In the one I'm writing at the moment, I was doing some research the other day to see if you could get DNA from a dog's teeth that's bitten a human.
Wow.
And apparently you can, which goes well for my plot. Because I wrote it and then I thought, well, I might have to edit this out because I wrote it thinking that somewhere in the past I'd seen this written down somewhere. And then wondering whether I dreamt it, So
I am pitying the person who had to do that, mind you.
Yes.
what
Approaching a large dog with a swab.
Yes, a dog with big. You mean the police dogs? The if you don't stop, they're having a meal out of you, aren't they? Let's face it. I remember once I was attending a hospital as an employee, and I saw one of my neighbours from where I used to live years and years ago, and he had his arm in plaster. And I said, "What have you done?" He went, "Oh, it was a police dog bit me." And I just thought, right, okay. Glad he doesn't live next to me now.
It sounds like a good starting point for a story.
Yes. Police dog bit.
Is that going to be your first?
It could be a short story, yeah.
Oh, could be the start of your novella in Flash.
What novella? Oh, that novella.
Yes, that one.
I know Val McDermott knows lots and lots of people, like pathologists and police officers and SOCOs and all this sort of thing. And she got some information off one lady and then put it in her next book. And the pathologist was slightly put out because she hadn't written her paper on it at that point. They were just discussing it over, like us now, just discussing it over a drink. And Val thought, that's a good idea, So yes, you've got to be careful sometimes. So that's where we're at. Are we what we're going to discuss next time? Have we got any thoughts on that? I was thinking about publishing maybe, but we'll decide, won't we, when we three meet again in thunder, lightning, or in rain, as it is now raining. So we'll draw this episode to a close.
Give me time to go and start my novella.
Yes. Give me time to go and lie down in a dark room. So thank you very much for listening today. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Carol.
And please be careful when you go out there in the dark. You have been listening to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production, produced by John Bissett. The music in Peril was composed and recorded by OM Studio Strings.